Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another deck report. This is Season 6X, week number 12, and this is our second week of 2026. We still don't have a Forbidden Limited list. I think the last time we've had to wait like around this long for a list was in toss format, which ended up giving us a list by the third week of January. That list was a very, very big one. It kind of just phased out every deck that was relevant that format and just kind of became a clean slate. I don't know whether or not that will happen for our current format. That being said, I have been having a lot of fun testing out a lot of different decks, while at the same time, on the side, also preparing for Burst Protocol. I don't want to prepare too much about Burst Protocol until we actually get a list, because that is kind of like in a limbo format. And if the list ends up being very big, like it happened on Toss format, then a lot of strategies have to be adapted to whatever happens in Burst Protocol. That being said, this is not something completely new. It's something very similar to something I've already built in the past. And we're kind of going full circle because at the very beginning of this format, I did profile this variant of this deck, but not the way it is shown. And funnily enough, I actually thought about building a version of this deck very similar to this back in Justice Hunters format, but I kind of talked myself out of doing it. I just felt like Maliss was just one of those strategies that just really needed to play with hand traps. And with FTKs running around halfway through the format, also like this deck struggling, like going second against some certain decks. Some decks just not being as strong, like not being weak to certain board breakers. Just made it very hard for me to build the version of the deck that I was building that I'm going to show on the screen. That being said, this is probably the most fun I've had with this build of Maliss in a long time. Like, I think the most fun I've had with this deck was when I built like the danger version, or like the very early stages of Maliss when I was testing around like a lot of different builds. But yeah, we'll get straight to the list. We're going to do it in a very different fashion than how we are used to, and you'll understand why. So for the Maliss part, we got one Dormouse, the two White Rabbits, the three Chessy Cats. We upped Chessy Cat to 3 as opposed to older lists that were playing hybrids. You will understand in a second. We're playing the 3 Marsh Hares, and then we got the 3 Malice Traps. We're playing the Gold Sark, the Terraforming, the Mirror, the Underground, and we are playing a lure in this build, which is why Chessy Cat is at 3. But you'll see with the non-engine part, another incentive for playing multiple copies of Chessy Cat. So that's it for the Maliss part. It's pretty much almost as standard as any Maliss build. Some builds are not playing all 3 traps. I chose to play all 3. I never bricked on them, so it kind of worked out. So for Quantums, we got the 2 blues, 2 reds, black layer, and Fairy Zaytan, the 3 teleports, and the layer 19. So some people have probably are familiar with this channel because of Jared's video that I made with him on the Puerto Rico regional. I really think this engine is still very underrated. I've won so many games just because people don't know what these cards do. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen to Maliss on the next Forbidden Limited list, but whatever happens to Maliss on the next list, best believe I will be playing this engine in future iterations of the deck to come. So no regrets on the Quantum cards. The main difference now is we're playing Black Layer again. I might play more copies. This card did come up enough times for me, and it was to my liking. So now we get to the non-engine portion. And this is going to show you like why the deck is built the way that it is at the current moment, and something I've been really liking with this deck. So we got the 3 base deals. This is common in most Maliss builds by now. Like, I don't think people play any less or any more than these. Shifter, I got convinced by a couple of people that just to main this. I was citing it at first. This doesn't conflict with the Quantum engine as much as you would think it does. It just turns your Quantum cards into extra extenders for your Maliss cards. Instead of turning them into their own bridge into Maliss. So before I talk about this last card, so Call by Talents. I don't know what to say about these cards. I really don't like this card, but you know, it's as long as it's in the format, I'll just keep playing it. It's just that good. One card I opted to play in the main deck was Enemy Controller. If you've been on my channel since before Maliss came out, you already know that I really like this card in Maliss. I haven't played it in the deck for a while, but I jumped back to playing it again. I had a match against Yomi where I would have lost if I didn't have this card. There was a match against Draco Tail where my opponent just I think they normal Mululu. I negated their Mululu before their end phase. Like during their main phase, I summoned the Maliss name. I summoned the Marshare. And in my draw phase, I activated this, took their Mululu, and they can only Mululu as a quick effect during the main phase. So this card was incredibly helpful there. There was also one game where my opponent had 2 cards in hand. They activated 5 mana to fuse, and Enemy Controller their Draco Tail monster, their only Draco Tail monster on the board, and they couldn't fuse because they didn't have enough cards to fuse because I took one of their fusion materials. So yeah, like, it's very niche that some of the situations that come up. This card has helped me with OTKs as well. I really like the Enemy Controller. And the incentive that I've had for Enemy Controller alongside the other cards that you saw is we are playing the MST package with Vision. So this is a play style of Maliss that I've wanted to try out for a while now. It's basically a board breaker approach, like with that just turbos out your cards. And you'll see with the extra deck that it gets more turbo-ish, like moving forward. Yeah, I really like this concept. There is a really cool combo you can do with Malice in the Mirror, where it's not really like a unique combo. Basically, yeah, you add this with Red Ramson, and you just pitch it for 2 draws with vision. You banish it with Marsh Hair, and you grab yourself another Marsh Hair. And if you resolve this plus Chessy Cat plus like the White Binder, that's 5 draws. And that's not even talking about Allure of Darkness or like another card that's in our extra deck that you'll see later. I also did the effect to add MST. I actually liked the MST in the main. This was very helpful against certain matchups. There was one match against Dracotail where they set their Dracotail horn, and I knew where the horn was, and I just used the MST. There was one game where they had Dracotail Flame, and what I ended up doing was I draw phase, activated Vision to add MST. They let the Vision resolve, and halfway through like most of my interruptions, I just I think I activated Call by the Grave. They tried to chain flame, and I MST'd like to dodge the flame. So there was one match against Yummy where my Yummy opponent could have OTK'd me and was about to OTK me, and I just popped their minion, and they couldn't OTK me. And it became a really strong grind fest, and I took it out from there. Yeah. Would I play this in the future? It really depends on what happens in future lists of the deck, but so far I do like it. If Red Ransom gets banned, I think this version of the deck is like a lot weaker, because it means that we won't have an easy way to get to Malice in the Mirror. And I don't think Malice in the Mirror is one of those spell cards where you want to play multiples of. So, yeah. So that's it for the main deck. It is 42 cards. You probably noticed. If you start from the side deck, Dominus Impulse is not in my main deck. I will talk about it more when we get to the side deck. Extra deck. Since we are playing the Black Quantum, we are playing Magna Liger and Gramples. Both of these did come up. This won me a match against Yummy. Like a lot of people just don't expect this. Black Layer is basically like Izuna on legs. Like, well, I don't know why I say on legs. It's basically like another Izuna, but it's more powerful than Izuna because it does not conflict with Dominus Impulse, which is another really good reason why the Quantum Engine is really good in the deck. Yeah, these do come up enough times. I've played one game against Dracotail as well, where my opponent is just setting their cards, and I activated the Black Layer, summoned the Grand Pools with the Blue Layer, and popped their K2 or their Rahus. A lot of standard stuff so far. We do have Lingeribo. Since we are playing the Quantum Engine, we are playing Cherubini. We are playing the Lizardos. We're playing SP. Something I play in the deck, not many Maliss players play this, but I really do like it, is Nightmare Phoenix. Some people are playing the Nightmare Cerberus instead, which again, I don't disagree with that. I think you should play it if you can. You'll notice there's 14 cards. I forgot to put up 15 cards. So, you know about this, you know about this, you know about Firewall. You got the 3 Malice Queens. And one last card we put in our extra deck was Saryuya. I did draw. I did summon Saryuya. I did draw 4, and it did win me again. So, basically, by playing Saryuya in our deck, basically, this deck becomes like one of the ultimate toolbox decks where you just draw into you draw into everything you need in your deck. You draw into your extenders. You draw into like your non-engine that you want. Like you draw into certain interruptions. If you go second, if you get to resolve this, like you realistically shouldn't lose the game because you are going to like draw into everything you want. This does conflict with Dominus Impulse, which is one of the main reasons why Impulse is not in the main deck. Uh, uh, Honestly, I don't know if this card is really good like in Maliss decks, but feel free to try it out. I actually did like it a lot. All right, let's go to the side deck. So I did side a 3 Impulse. I sided 3 Retaliating Seas, 3 Nibiru's, 3 Perulias, and I did side the Fualos. You notice how I'm not playing Fualos in the main deck either. Let's start by talking why I didn't main Fualos to begin with. I've had a couple of games where I just lost because I go first and I just open the Fualos. Since we're not playing Almirage in this deck and we're not playing the Adagnister engine, hand traps are just a little bit more of a liability in this deck. I kind of just want to push through my opponent's boards with just the engines that the deck has, more than just rely on hand traps to just stop them from playing. Maliss is just one of those strategies where if you get out of the early game really quick, you can snowball a lot of advantage with your Maliss names. But if your Maliss name gets interrupted enough times, you shouldn't be able to go towards your place. I like the quantum cards are just really good at breaking boards. Like if you open like multiples of these or just like open multiple of these, like all these cards will bait your opponent's cards. And if your opponent lets even one quantum go through, like this is just a lot of snowball advantage that you're getting out of their resources. Especially since we're playing Nightmare Phoenix. Like if you get to 2 quantum names and they both get to Nightmare Phoenix, like you're chain blocking with the Nightmare Phoenix. Like you're popping a back row, you're summoning an extra monster. If they don't do anything about the Nightmare Phoenix, like you can just turn that Nightmare Phoenix into like SP Little Knight and just bait more cards. If you don't get Malice locked, and this is the reason why I want to play more copies of Black Layer, like Black Layer can just turn into these, and if they let Black Layer resolve, like this is gonna pop a monster, detach to add the layer 19, and then the layer 19 just summons you another monster. And if they get rid of this with the red layer under it, the red layer can just bring this back. It cannot attack or activate its effects, but it's just another really good body that you can just use for like SP Little Knight, for example. That's why I like this version of the deck. It feels like you're playing real Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about like this engine and that version of like the strategy. But that being said, this strategy is not going to always work on game 1. Like in game 1s, you are going to sometimes you will face some degenerate decks that are just going to like do a lot of floodgate type things or in your board or in your games, but not a lot of those decks or strategies are common on game 1s. You more usually see them post side. That's where all these hand traps come in. When you know that you're not going first, Like Fualos is just but the best card that you can put in. You can just swap a lot of the like aforementioned non-engine that's already in the main and just replace it with all these hand traps. And the same thing goes for Dominus Impulse. Like if you saw the main deck, pretty much almost everything in the deck has a purpose, like for advancing your game state. Dominus Impulse does not do that. Dominus Impulse is just an end result of what you get when you advance your game state, or like a stepping stone to help you advance into your like advanced game state. That's why I didn't main it. I know it's a little bit skewed, and not many people will understand where I'm coming from with this. But I feel like if you're playing a board breaker type of strategy, you shouldn't be playing 1-for-1s in your main deck. Like unless it's very specific ones. Like there is a world I could have mained Imperm and Impulse, and that would have been good enough. But yeah. I think the side deck was fine. I never drew into Nib. I drew into Impulse only once. I drew into Retaliating Sea twice. Once against Memento and once against Draco Tail. I feel like this card is going to be very important moving forward, like on Burst Protocol format. Like against the Radiant Typhoon deck, the new Elation spell, you can use this on it, and that is a blowout against their deck and against that strategy. More branded hybrids are going to lean away from branded fusion, so this is not like as effective as it is currently against the current builds of Draco Tail. However, they will activate Ketu or Rahu at some point, which will make the Retaliating Sea just very strong against them. Purulias are mainly here for K9 decks or like very similar style decks. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Purulia. Like, I don't like Meowth right now. I think Meowth is not that great. Not even against the Maliss Mirror match. Against the Maliss Mirror, I think like these 12 are just going to suffice. And yes, we do know that Nibiru conflicts with Impulse, but you know, just sequencing against one another is like the ideal thing that you would do in the matchup. Alright. I yapped a little bit too much about the deck. I hope you liked the strategy that comes behind it. I think out of every single Maliss list that I've profiled in the channel so far, this is one of my favorites. I really like the playstyle of the deck. I don't feel like any deck in the format in the format outside of Mitsurugi variants are like have a high enough ceiling for this deck to not be able to contest against, like board wise. At least until Burst Protocol comes around, that's going to change like very drastically later on. But for now, this is what I got for you today. Until next time, keep practicing and keep dueling.